What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. Now, today's first entitled parent story, as you can tell by the title, is a weird one. This set of grandparents do not want a granddaughter, they have to have a grandson. Why? I'm not completely sure. Let's get into the story. Give us a biological grandchild, and it better be male. My brother and my sister-in-law have been married for 6 years. I love them both dearly. They adopted a little girl about a year ago. My parents were happy about this too, at first. They got really angry when my brother and sister-in-law announced recently that their daughter would be their only child and they do not want biological kids. My mum and dad lost their heads. They told my brother he had to get my sister-in-law pregnant. He was the family's male heir and would have to have a biological son to carry forward the family name. This makes no sense to me, nor my bro and my sister-in-law. It's not as if we're a family of European royalty who gives an F about the family name in this day and age. Well, my parents do, apparently. They've been berating my brother and guilt-tripping my sister-in-law, making her feel like she's taking something away from our family. On one occasion, they actually suggested that my brother leave my sister-in-law if she didn't want to get pregnant and have a son with another woman. Oh my. What's even worse is that they've stopped paying attention to my niece. Earlier, they were cool and talked to her almost every day, but ever since they were told about my brother and sister-in-law's decision, they've stopped calling her. This annoys me and has deeply saddened my bro and sister-in-law. The child is 3 years old and doesn't deserve this kind of treatment. Last month, my brother told me that mum and dad had called him and they had talked about something unrelated. When he asked if they wanted to talk to their granddaughter, they said they'd talk to their real grandchild when my brother came to his senses and decided to give them one. I was angrier than I've been in a long time. I called my parents and unloaded on them. I told them how selfish and cruel they were being and how dare they take out their anger on my niece, along with a lot of other things I can't even remember. My mum started crying as she's not used to being yelled at. I used some very harsh words, but I just can't believe they are being so cruel towards an innocent child. After that, my parents have tried to rally our relatives, uncles, aunts, cousins, and our grandparents to gang up on my brother and sister-in-law to pressure them to have a biological child. Male, obviously. However, their plan has failed miserably. Most of the relatives told them they were being crazy. Cousins repeated some of the things that I had said to them. My uncles and aunts told them even if they did want a biological grandson, there was no excuse for the way they were treating my niece. Even my grandparents, who were quite old-fashioned, admonished them for their behaviour towards my niece. My brother has banned them from his home. I've banned them from mine. This ban will stay in place until they start treating my niece like their granddaughter, i.e. the way she deserves to be treated. I feel like my grandparents shunning my niece hurts even more because when she first became a part of the family, they appeared to love her. They would speak to her on the phone, play with her when they visited, but all of that stopped when they found out that my brother and sister-in-law won't be having any biological kids. They just rejected a little girl for no fault of her own. Wow, I mean, firstly, controlling the choices of your now adult children in terms of what babies they should or shouldn't have is one thing, but then completely disregarding and ignoring your 3-year-old adopted grandchild just because you're annoyed that your son isn't going to have a biological son? That is absolutely mad. All I can say is, OP, good on you for standing up for yourself, for your brother, and for your sister-in-law, and for your niece, really, and saying to your parents, you know what, you can't control what my brother does in terms of his children. That is ridiculous. And if you're no longer going to talk to your adopted grandchild, then I don't want to talk to you. You're banned from my house, you're banned from my brother's house, you're banned from talking to us. Deal with it. Now moving on to our next story, my entitled sister wants me to house my niece for free during uni. My niece had to move back in with her mother after the lockdown started. She lost her job and all her classes were online. Her lease was month to month, so she didn't have to worry about breaking her lease. Recently, the schools have reopened and she has started attending classes again. Problem is, her apartment, which was walking distance from her university, is now rented, and parking in the area sucks, and it's an hour one way from her mother's house on public transport. I will say now that my niece is also incredibly spoiled and is taking classes for a degree with no practical benefits. By this, I mean that it will in no way help her with a career path, nor are they necessary courses for further education. I got a call from my sister asking if my niece could live with me because I live alone in a 2-bedroom house and I'm a 15-minute bus trip away from her uni. I said no for several reasons. First of all, I work nights and need to sleep during the day. My niece is a very loud young woman and doesn't understand the concept of an indoor voice. Last time she stayed in the same house as me, I was sleep deprived because of her practically yelling on her phone, and it affected how I did my job, resulting in a write-up. My niece is also a very messy person. I help with the move-out and the memory makes me shudder. Some of the unwashed dishes in the sink were tossed because they were beyond cleaning. She tried to just sit on random stuff and text her friends and scroll TikTok. I had to take her phone and lock it in the glove box for the U-Haul we rented to get her butt moving to help. My sister still calls me a female dog for doing this. Thirdly, while I may have a 2-bedroom home, the second room is my office/workroom. I've been in the process of making wire wrap necklaces to sell online for extra income, and I need the area as a workspace. It's also my library, for lack of a better word. I keep my collection on novels on bookshelves in there, and a comfy old recliner for reading in. Fourth, my niece is allergic to cats, and I have 3. My sister seems to think I can keep them all either in my bedroom or locked up in the basement for the school year. F that right there. And 5, and this is the big one. My old sister is under the belief that my niece wouldn't have to help out with household expenses or be expected to cook for herself. She also thinks that my niece shouldn't have to get a job while in school to focus on her studies. She tried to pull the "we're family and should help each other out" card, but that didn't count for anything when my step-siblings nearly made me homeless after my stepdad died and gave me 30 days to find a new place for me and my dog. Dog-friendly buildings where I live are hard to find. The only way I would agree for my niece to live with me is that she would give me $250 a month to help cover utilities and part of the internet. I figured that is a steal, considering a cheap place around her school is more than double, even triple that, plus utilities, and she could use the garage for her car for free. But I would also expect her to buy her own food and clean up after herself, like doing her own laundry, keeping her room clean, and putting her dishes at least in the sink, if not the dishwasher. I would not expect her to cut the grass or shovel snow. The thought of even asking her to do this already gives me a headache. Now I'm getting texts from both sisters telling me that I'm a horrible person and should open my home to this, that it's unreasonable to expect a 19-year-old to spend 2 hours on the bus every day and yada yada. Part of me feels guilty because I could move my office and workspace down into the basement, but that can't be a living space due to the lack of windows, and I can't afford the expense of a second person in my home without them chipping in for bills, nor will I lock my cats away in my home. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, if I was in this situation, I probably wouldn't even do it for $250 a month. The worst thing for me is that if you are asleep, right, and you have to sleep in the day because you work at night, and then someone is being loud during the day affecting your sleep, that is affecting your entire life, and as you say, OP, that is clearly going to affect your quality of work. So that is a principal reason why not to do it. Secondly, overall, this person doesn't sound like the nicest person. Like, I know they're family and all, but if they're not helping out around the house, not willing to, pay just a little bit of money to, come and actually live there in your house with a free garage for her car 15 minutes away from uni, then nah, not for me. I get it, they're family and maybe you want to help your family out, but nah, too much effort, man, not for me. And yeah, I mean, don't get pressured by what they're thinking. Let them think whatever they want. It doesn't matter if both your sisters are telling you that you're being selfish. It's not their house. I mean, first of all, that is the obvious answer. And secondly, it's not for them to say what you should do, really, is it? I mean, you do what you want to do. If you want to help out, fine. If not, also fine. Now moving on to our third story, entitled Mum Calls Me Out for Being a Pregnant Teen to Teach Her Daughter a Lesson. To understand my area, I will give you a few facts about the place this happened. It's important just so you can understand the level of entitlement that people feel just because they live here. I'm from here, and it used to have a much smaller city feel, and mostly people actually from here don't have quite the same mentality, but we aren't the most friendly sort either. Firstly, the city is the #1 in most educated, highest percentage of degrees per capita in the US. Secondly, the city is in the top 5 of the richest counties in the US. In fact, in our area, we also have 5 out of the 5 top wealthiest counties in the US within a few minutes drive. Third, city is also the fittest city in America. And fourth, the average age of a woman having a baby in this city is way over the average. I think 35 to 37 is the norm. My city is highly transient. Most people are not from here that live here. You know, all those valedictorians from your high school, the overachievers. If they are artsy or in finance, they go to New York. If they are buttholes and self-important, they come here. They were the big fish in the little pond, but when they move here, they figure out they aren't as important as they thought, so they turn into even bigger buttholes that cover their insecurities by oozing entitlements. So, this area is loaded with a rare breed of entitled people, the type that look down on everyone and anyone they deem less. Now, on with my story. I went to college in the Midwest. I moved back home after college, married and got pregnant a little later at the very young age of 28. Very young for this area. However, I have never looked my age. I'm 4'10", 90 pounds, and have always looked much younger than my actual age, partly due to my stature. So, at 28, I could easily have passed for 16, which as an adult is amazing, but as an actual teen, it was awful. Pregnant me walks into a convenience store and I go to wait in line behind a teenager and her entitled mother. I vaguely hear the mum whispering to her daughter and looking back at me, but just like any good city person, I'm completely minding my own business, until the woman turns around to me and starts to point at my belly and tell me how I need to tell her daughter how embarrassing it is and how hard it is to be a teenage mum with no father for your baby. I wasn't wearing a ring at this stage, fat fingers, or maybe she was just assuming that too. How my life is ruined because of what I did, and how I won't get to go to school. Tell her what mistakes you have made to get yourself in this kind of trouble, she tells me. She looks back at her daughter and says, "You don't want to end up like her, do you?" None of this makes me mad, just annoyed. Maybe at the same time flattered because she thinks my pregnant self is a teenager, but more annoyed by the condescending tone of her voice and the audacity that she would confront a teenager like that and embarrass her kid. She has been done checking out at this point, but I guess was waiting for an actual response. I was fully prepared to ignore her, and typically I probably would walk right by and not engage. But pregnancy leaves you with less patience. I look at the girl and tell her that her mum's advice is pretty solid. You don't want to get pregnant as a teen. I'm sure it isn't fun, especially when some people are really judgmental and would be trashy enough to condemn you for it. But since I'm a 30-year-old, I upped my age a little and was happily married, I didn't really feel embarrassed by it. Not as embarrassed as your mum should be for making a butt of herself for assuming. I did a slight stare down of her mum as I walked past them and out of the store. My daughter is now 12, and I still laugh at this story with people. I wish I had a wittier retort, but my brain froze for a minute, even trying to comprehend what this lady was talking about. Well, OP, in my opinion, I think your response was absolutely perfect. You told her exactly why it's embarrassing to assume anything about someone else in a negative way. And I think you're completely right, don't you guys? I do think it's very impressive when people who are put under this sort of like stress in a certain situation where someone is clearly quite rude to them like this, and then they come out with really well-worded paragraphs explaining their point really well. I think if I was in that situation, there is no way I would do that. Either, I'm just trying to think, what would I do? Either I would, just ignore and just go away, be like, what has just happened? Or I'd probably just, fumble my words, say something extremely rude, get, very annoyed. Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. I'd have to catch myself in that situation and see what I did. Let me know down below, guys, what would your response be, right? If you were in this situation, or not just this situation, but any situation like this one, and you were put, your back up against the wall, someone has said something to you that's unfounded, probably a little bit embarrassing, and it's just really uncalled for and rude. What would you do in that situation? Don't think what I would like to do. What would your reaction be? You can't help it. It's just a reaction. What would you do? Comment down below, guys. I want to hear what you would do in that situation. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this episode of Entitled Parents. If you want more Entitled Parents, then check out this video from yesterday. It's got loads of amazing stories in there. Go and watch them all. And also, if you are new to the channel, please make sure to subscribe over here by clicking this button. It is completely free, of course, and you get to see all of my daily videos each and every day. So why not do it? And I will see you guys tomorrow with a brand new upload.